Two people can love each other deeply, build an entire life side by side, and somehow still wind up as total strangers. Take Maria and Sigmund. They are the central couple in a Norwegian film called Lovable, and their story is a painfully honest look at relationship collapse. They love each other. They share a family. But somewhere along the line, they lose the ability to connect. Maria is carrying a massive amount of the practical and emotional weight in their household. She is overwhelmed, and she desperately wants to feel seen, supported, and emotionally tethered to her husband. Sigmund also loves Maria, but as the friction between them grows, his reaction is to get quieter. He asks for space. The higher the emotional temperature in the room rises, the harder it is for him to stay present. It creates a silent, agonizing dialogue. Maria reaches out, quietly pleading for him not to leave her emotionally. Sigmund retreats, silently asking her to stop overwhelming him. Neither of them has any intention of hurting the other, yet they hurt each other over and over until they inevitably decide to divorce. Watching a marriage dissolve like this forces a question. The mystery isn't about figuring out who stopped loving who first. The question is why their exact attempts to save the relationship ended up destroying it. To understand what goes wrong, we can look at the work of Dr. John Gottman. After spending decades studying thousands of couples, he identified 4 specific communication patterns that strongly predict a relationship's breakdown. We can see these behaviors mapped out in this 2x2 grid. In the first quadrant, we have criticism, which is what happens when we stop addressing a specific problem and start attacking our partner's character. Right next to it is defensiveness, where protecting ourselves takes priority over understanding the other person. The bottom half of the grid shows the final 2 stages: contempt, which relies on sarcasm and superiority, and stonewalling, which occurs when one partner gets entirely emotionally overwhelmed and simply shuts down. You can watch Maria and Sigmund play out these exact patterns. Maria becomes increasingly critical because she feels completely invisible. Sigmund responds with defensiveness because he feels constantly blamed. Eventually, Sigmund emotionally withdraws, stonewalling, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't know how else to survive the moment. Gottman's research charts the symptoms of a failing relationship, but it doesn't explain why these patterns feel so mandatory to people who still love each other. The answer to that question sits below the surface, in a concept we can call emotional logic. This is the unconscious why driving how we argue, withdraw, and protect ourselves. It is a highly personalized survival code. Maria and Sigmund are clashing because they are essentially running on 2 entirely different emotional operating systems. In Maria's system, a specific action creates safety. In Sigmund's, a completely different action creates safety. This schematic shows Maria's system. Distance triggers a nervous system alarm. To turn it off, she generates a pursuit output. Connection is her path to safety. Sigmund's is opposite. Emotional intensity triggers overwhelm. His necessary output is withdrawal. Space is his tool to regain equilibrium. If you sit inside Maria's emotional world, her constant pursuit makes complete sense. If you sit inside Sigmund's, his quiet retreat makes complete sense. They are both executing highly rational survival strategies. This conflict is a mechanical clash between 2 valid, yet incompatible internal logics. Because their systems are incompatible, their attempts to fix the problem actually cause the damage. When Maria reaches out to create safety for herself, Sigmund's system processes that reaching as intense pressure, a direct threat. And when Sigmund withdraws to create safety for himself, Maria's system processes that silence as distance and abandonment, a direct threat to her. This circular flow diagram traps them. Maria's output, pursuit, feeds into Sigmund's system as an alarm. His output, withdrawal, feeds directly back into Maria's system as an alarm. The more she pushes, the faster he retreats. It creates an emotional vacuum. Because their individual survival codes run in total opposition, the mechanics guarantee that neither person will ever feel safe at the exact same time. That is the trap. Your partner's specific solution for finding safety happens to be the exact mechanism that triggers your greatest fear. Later in the story, Maria starts going to therapy. Initially, she uses the sessions to search for answers about Sigmund. She wants the therapist to explain why her husband refuses to love her the way she needs to be loved. But the therapist gently blocks that path. Instead of trying to fix Sigmund's withdrawal, the therapist redirects Maria's attention inward, asking her to explore the origins of her own intense reactions. Maria begins to see that her fear of being left and her need to be chosen existed long before she met Sigmund. Her marriage acted as a stage where these lifelong patterns were finally forced into the light. We all carry our own invisible rules about emotional availability, about how to stay calm, or about how to handle pain. We expect ourselves to follow these rules, and by extension, we quietly demand that our partners follow them too. When they don't, we interpret their difference as a threat. Real compassion means becoming curious enough to look past the behavior and see the internal logic that makes it feel necessary. Relationships act as highly effective mirrors. They drag our triggers and pain points out into the open, forcing us to look at the emotional architecture we've been quietly carrying around since childhood. So when a conflict leaves you frustrated, you can change the dynamic by changing the question. Instead of asking, "Why don't they understand me?" try asking, "What emotional logic are they living from?" And then turn the mirror around and ask, "What emotional logic am I living from?" Because beneath every criticism, beneath every defensive reaction, and beneath every quiet withdrawal, there is just a human being relying on old tools to protect something that once mattered deeply.